Hello and welcome to another edition of Two Labs Garage. Today's episode is an episode that is going to be very pivotal in this car, and that I am going to be taking the stock front drum brakes off and I'm going to be converting it to disc. And I'm going to be using a system I've used 3 times before. I used it on some of my other revivals I've done in the past before I had the bright idea of starting a YouTube channel. I'm going to be using that same system from Scarebird brakes. It's not a hard system and it's pretty economical, so stay tuned. We're going to convert this thing over. So like I've just said, we're going to be putting front disc brakes on this car. Now, I would really like to put power brakes on it, but just the way that the 64, 65 Falcons are built, I think some of the earlier ones, there's just not room for a booster and all that. I have seen it done, and you either have to notch the export braces, or I talked to somebody one time, they had to come up with some elaborate contraption to put fluid in there. And doesn't really work out, and I'm not hot rodding this car. I'm going to run it pretty much stock. I might get the edge to put a 4-barrel on it, maybe. Anyway, it's done fine for all these years of 4-wheel drums, so I'm going to change it to front disc, and that's a pretty good improvement. I'm going to be using a kit from Scarebird Brakes. But what they do is they send you a backing plate that replaces the backing plate for the front drums. And they give you a parts list where you can go to your favorite auto parts supplier, or a junkyard if you even choose. It's up to you. And tells you what parts to get off the counter parts. It's a whole lot less expensive than a lot of other leading brake conversions on the market. And I know I've already said it a couple times, but I'm going to say it again. I've been happy with them every time I've used it. It's a little bit of a process, but it's not too difficult. Another thing I want to bring up is if you have to do a full drum rebuild on a car that's got 4-wheel drums, and you have to do the whole kit and caboodle, it costs just about the same thing to convert it to front disc as it would to just rebuild the drums, and you get a whole lot better system. The other real perk to this is if you do decide to go back to the 4-wheel drum, like if you want to sell the car and keep it all original and all, just hold on to the parts you take off, you can put them right back on. This is a setup that can be easily reversed should you choose, but since I'm probably going to keep this Falcon till the day I die, I'm going to not choose, but the option's always there. Alright, so we got our wheel off and we got the car jacked up. Now, of course we got a jack stand under it. Not sure y'all can see it. There it is. But anyway, next step is to get this drum off. Now these things can come off easy, or they can fight you. And there's a few ways to get them off. This one isn't just pulling off, but we're spinning freely. So I'm hoping I can just give it a few smacks with a tension getter and we can get this thing off. If not, I'll just pop the bearing cap, pull the whole hub off. I'm gonna have to pull the hub off anyway, so that's not that big a deal, but I'd rather not do it that way personally. Alright, so I got my tension getter here. Some people refer to this as a sledgehammer. Some people call it a 3-pound maul, at least I think it's 3 pounds. Some people refer to it as a BFH. Some people call it a Tanya Harding. Whatever you use, just make sure you got its attention, but you want it to come off. She didn't like that. Careful not to hit your studs. She ain't budging. So it looks like next step will be pry bars. got my pry bar. It's got a big one and a small one. Conventional wisdom says it's on tight, use a big bar. And that makes sense. But these small ones, sometimes they can just get in there better. And some people are probably wondering why I'm not going in there and relaxing the shoes. Well, I can, just from years of doing this, I can feel, and it's not stuck on the shoes, it's a center hub. And that's why I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time fooling with it. If I can get this off this way, that's great. If not, the cap's coming off. My patience just ran out. The cap comes off. There we go. What in Moses' name is this? I do not know. I had never seen one of them before. And like I said, I've done a bunch of these. I ain't never seen that. So, we'll go get some pliers and we'll yank that Carter pin out. We'll go get in there. The grease in this thing, by the way, see if I can get y'all in there a little bit. That grease is pretty nasty. Alright, so I got me a small pair of channel locks. These should work. Alright. This Carter key is, I said this Carter key is coming out. Huh. Right. Now, get this castle thing off. And take the nut off. Alright, now we should come off. Let's see if we... Darren's has some rust on them. Guess it's a good thing I'm changing them. Now we just rustle these off. Ooh, what was that? What was that? Alright, I'm just curious. I wonder how the brakes were up here. This thing has not been driven in a long time. I can tell by all the dust in here. Ooh. But the shoes are in pretty good shape. So, anyway, go ahead and get this out of here. So anyway, to get them to separate, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this block of wood on top of the hub, keep from inadvertently damaging anything. I'm going to take my maul and just go get cinder and beaten after the dogs chase that tennis ball. This goes on all day. I have never had one fight me this hard. A few more times. Huh. Well, I don't have a acetylene torch. So, I do have a map gas. Maybe I need to try that. Alright, so I've worked on both of the front drums. And I can't get even one to turn loose from the hubs. And that's very, very disappointing. I've never had this trouble before. The FAIRLANE passenger side was a little bit stubborn, but I was able to get it off. This one just isn't budging. The FAIRLANE will at least budge. It was just difficult. This one ain't budging. Both of them done the same thing. So what I'm going to do is let them soak overnight. Let them sit out here and soak. Don't have this oil on them. If I had a acetylene torch, or even enough mat gas, I'm pretty sure that this wouldn't be an issue, but it is. That's what I got. And I got a friend that's got a hydraulic press, but his shop's about 20 miles in the opposite direction of a machine shop that I'm going to need to be using. So if I don't get this out, I'll probably just take it to the machine shop and ask them to press them out. They got the tools. There's no use in me just beating myself up over this. I've given it an honest effort, but we're just going to see what penetrating oil does after it sits overnight. Never know, I might get lucky. Well, friends, this may be one of the most harebrained ideas I've ever had. But I'm not one that wants to give up easy. And I've really been struggling with the idea of just giving up on this hub extraction. So I came up with the idea of a press of stuff I have around. We're under my 1997 Dodge pickup with my floor jack. And I'm going to see if I can use a combination of the floor jack and the front cross member of the engine as a press. Is this a bad idea? Maybe. I refer y'all again to my disclaimer at the beginning of the video. Well, as you can see, this thing is really stuck because we picked up the whole front end of this truck and she ain't budged. That's another strike. I did come up with another idea. I'll have to see if I got all the stuff to do it though. A little disappointing, but honestly I would have been surprised if it worked. I'm going to try a little different this time with the chain wrapped around the drum. I think I'm on to something, but I gotta figure out a way to keep the front of the jack from lifting up. Alright, so here's what I've come up with for now. It's using the frame of the old Dodge truck to see if I can limit the lift on it. While it initially comes up, it gets to that point. Now, Well, I could say I gave it an honest effort, but that has maxed out the capacity of a jack. Okay, so I've decided no more harebrained ideas of trying to get those hubs separated. I'm just going to let the machine shop take care of that. I figure those things have been on there almost 60 years. I'm probably the first one that's tried to separate them. And, well, I hate to give up, but I just think it's in my best interest to let the professionals do it. Anyway, my next step is going to be getting the rest of this drum brake hardware out of there. So I'm using the spring puller from a Harbor Freight set that I got many moons ago. And I've been very happy with it. And just start unhooking stuff. These things should come off fairly easy. Now, always when you're working with a loaded spring, be very, very careful, because they got a lot of pent-up energy. If you're not careful, they can hurt you. And these got fresh paint on, so it looks like this thing got a brake job right before it was parked. Anyway, regardless, I still want to go disc brakes. So I got all that stuff off. Keep it around y'all. Just look at these are brand new shoes. Maybe one day I'll have a revival that I plan on keeping the front drums on and I'll be able to reuse them. Who knows? Brand new stuff, let's keep it around. May as well. So anyway, what you do now, get this backing plate off, is there's 4 bolts. They got some funny looking heads on them. You just go in from the back, take them off. Alright, so I grabbed a 9/16 while I was at it. And a gear wrench. I think it certainly wouldn't hurt. It's a good thing I did, because it actually is a 9/16. I don't want whatever you're selling. You see, these are some fairly funny looking bolts. They're not going to do us any good, but we're going to replace them with some grade 8 bolts. And I'm pulling these out now, partly just to keep moving on the brake job, and the other part so when I go to the hardware store, whichever one I go to next, I'll know what size I need to pick up, because I don't remember. If I remember right, each wheel takes 3 of one size and 1 of a longer one. Alright, so here are my brackets I got from Scarebird. These, you just take off your stock. Backing plates for the drum brakes. Bolt these in place. And the Chevy Celebrity calipers bolt right in there. And it's a fairly easy job. This time, in the past, I've gotten them plated and just gone with that. These, I got these unplated, and I just as soon paint them black, so I just got them unpainted so I could paint them black. Just a personal preference thing. So anyway, go ahead and put a light coat of primer on first. And somebody runs a paint shop one time told me that the silver cans of Rust-Oleum is some good primer. I'm sure there's lots of good ones on the market, but I use silver can Rust-Oleum whenever I use spray paint when all possible. And I'll wait a few minutes and then flip them, prime them again, then we'll start painting them black. Alright, so I remember my hat this time. Anyway, got them primed. Now we're just going to paint them black. Now why would I choose to paint them black? Well, the wheel choices I'm considering for this car include the Krager SS, assuming the rims I have aren't too wide. And I don't want to draw a whole lot of attention to it, so I'm just going to paint them black rather than leave them coated this time. So anyway, since I'm down here, I'm just going to show you real quick. This is just a mock-up using the old bolts, and they're just stuck in there. But this is how it goes. This piece right here has replaced the backing plate from the old drums. And your brake caliper bolts on here, our wheel hub here. And I'm going to change all these lines, so I know that what I'm doing right there is pretty stressful on that rubber line. But since that's not something I'm going to be reusing, I'm not really concerned about that, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull that off. And that rusty brake line and all that, I'm going to be replacing everything. Every piece of the brake system on this car, with the exception of the brake pedal, is getting replaced. So anyway, it's time for the def can to go. I have been waiting for this. And trust me, I've walked all around the car with this camera, and that is the best thing that I can come up with. And I know it's still not very good, but trust and believe it's the best I can do. So, go ahead and start getting this off. Well, I can't even see this. It's not very tight. Go switch to a longer extension too. Alright. There's one bolt. If you're wondering why I hate def cans so much, it's because they're dangerous. It's a single reservoir master cylinder, so if you lose pressure at any location in your brake system, you lose all brakes. After the dual master cylinders came in, it basically split your brake system in two and allowed you another brake system. If you have loose pressure in one spot, you still got half your brakes. So I think they're far better. And also, to properly do a disc brake conversion, you really need to run a master cylinder designed for disc brakes, which is what I'm doing now. And for that, I use them. Alright, so to paint it, I'm going to use duplicolor engine enamel. Mainly because it says resistant to oil and fluids. A lot of times, if you want to strip some paint off something, put brake fluid on it, it'll work. This engine paint that's resistant to all this is the only thing I think has a chance of standing up. So anyway, every time before I've just left them there. This is going to be new for me, so I'm just going to spritz it with black paint and hope for the best. Alright, so I got my hubs back from the machine shop here. And they also have doubled the time getting the drum off, but they got it. I also took my studs out of my hub, so I'm going to have to repress my studs in. And to do that, I'm just going to do it on the tailgate of the truck. I've never actually pressed studs in while the hub wasn't on the vehicle. So it's entirely possible doing it this way is not a good idea. So getting ready to find out. Took a minute, but it worked. So I guess I got 9 more to go. Can I start it this way? Yes. Alright, so I got my studs pressed into the hub. Had 9 go on pretty much with no issues. Number 10, the very last one, yeah, that required a trip to AutoZone. But that's alright. Next step in getting these hubs ready to go back on the Falcon is going to be to replace the wheel bearings. Okay, so to extract the old bearings and seals, I'm setting the hub in this truck rim. That way it's got the nice big center bore, and that'll hold the hub up while I take this pry bar and try to smack on the seal to get them out. Typically with these, I don't replace the races unless they really look bad. But we're going to see what we got in here. Also try to get y'all a different perspective. I'm going to try this GoPro again. Me and this thing really have never gotten along, but I'm going to keep trying, try to give y'all a better point of view. But if you don't see any GoPro footage, it's probably not worked again. So let's see what we got. Did that do it? Yep. See, it didn't take much. Switch to the other one. And again, we're not using a very big attention getter, just a standard one. Alright, so next step, we'll take this rag. First of all, we'll clean my tool. And now I'm going to go in here with this old rag. Start cleaning some of this grease out. How's that race look? Race is in pretty good shape. That's a good news. Anyway, I think I might go try to find a clean rag. Alright, so I got another rag. I got some brake cleaner too, go try to get in there and just clean this out. Good. Switch over to the other rag. And just clean these things up real good. You want to get all the old grease out that you possibly can. That's not hard, just wipe it like you saw me shove a rag through. Some brake clean. If his race is in good shape, that's good, because I hate extracting those races from these things. Just don't like it. Now my personal feeling is you can't ever have too much grease. So anyway, different people pack their wheel bearings differently. I use this thing, you can get it pretty cheap. I keep it in an old bag, just so it doesn't make a mess of everything. But it's just 2 plastic cones. You put your bearing down in between them, and it's got a grease fitting right here. And when you see grease come out of your bearings, they're packed. Some people like to pack them by hand. I like to pack them like this. And as long as you get them packed, there's really no wrong way to do it. You just want to get it packed. I've even seen some people temporarily put a buddy bearing on the end of a hub and pop them full of grease that way. Hey, whatever works. Anyway, go ahead and get y'all down here on the tailgate. Put my hand there. Alright. And we'll go ahead and we'll get some bearings ready and pack them into this hub. Wipe the old grease off the tailgate. Alright, so we found the bearing that goes here. I'm just going to open my thing up. And yeah, these can be a little messy, but I don't know of any way that you can pack a bearing in it and not get messy. So, go ahead and do it this way. Just screw it on down, and just take your grease gun, put it down like that, and pump. That's going to turn loose. Just go drop that greasy thing in there. Hands, and now gotta take the seal, the wheel seal, out of here. Set it just inside there. Then right here, I have a race and seal tool, I guess you'd call it. Just knock it into place. It needs a little bit over here. Make sure you seat it good. Like this little bit of trash off, it shouldn't be here. Alright, so that's that. And good, this is one of the smaller ones. I got that. Because this is the one that goes towards the outside of your hub. Just repeat this process. Screw the hat down. Grease her up. And now I'm just going to take my hubs and slide them on the spindle. Now, if that bit kind of shot off my other bearing, that's not overly surprising. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to take some of this excess grease that was on the tool, pack it in there, because we want to get these things good and greased. I'm going to take my bearing, it just ease it on there. Got a little piece of trash, let me get that out. Good place for it. Again, just kind of pop the grease in there. Just like that. Find the washer that goes in here, clean that up. I should have done that earlier, but As long as it gets done before it goes back in the car, that's what's important. So it's got a little key on it. Go ahead and hit with this real quick. Put that on just like that. Take your nut, clean it up. Wipe it down real good. Tighten it back on. Yeah, so this will work right here. We're just going to tighten her up. And this is the seat and everything. And once you get it tight, back it off like quarter turn or something like that. Then you put your castle nut and cotter pin on, which involves finding your castle nut. Alright, one of the things that's super cool is these people at Scarebird, they'll send you a baggie of parts like the clip for the brake line and also cotter pins. You get your castle nut on there and get your cotter key on there and just flip it around. And the last step, of course, you gotta clean something else. Go clean this dust cap. If you want to just put a new dust cap on there, that's completely understandable. I think this one has seen its better days. And I'm just gonna put that on there. And find me a tension getter around here somewhere and whack that on. Why is it not going like I think it should? There we go. I always use a framing hammer too. That needs a nice waffle print in there. Seriously. And most people consider a ball peen hammer an automotive hammer. I guess they are. I don't know what the real purpose of one or whatever is. I just use whatever one I have handy. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and do the other side. Alright, so one thing that we're going to have to do is when you get your new rotors, these are made for a Toyota Privy or minivan. Now those jelly bean looking things, obviously they weren't designed to put rotors on a Falcon, but they work very well. The stock wheel studs, however, they have this little bit of a lip, I believe it's called a swedge, and it interferes with the rotor going on. So, according to the Scarebird people, there's 3 ways to negate this. You can replace the studs, which, knowing what I know now, that's probably the route I would have gone this time, but every time in the past I've not done that. I believe you can also get a swedge cutter. I've never done that, but that's one of the things they mentioned. The other one is you can get a 43/64 drill bit and drill holes out in your rotors a little bigger yourself. Now for this, I highly recommend a drill press, such as the one you see here. And you'll need a special kind of drill press to do this. I mean, this is just an old Craftsman, woodworking, Sears drill press that was my granddad's when he was a big woodworker before he passed. I'm just centering it up now, and well, I guess I'm going to be looking for somewhere to plug this in. Just flip it on. And easy does it. Don't need to go too hard. Alright. Roll it around. And there you go. All 5 of your holes are drilled out. And just messing with this whole thing, it just got me wondering. Wonder what old Bob Veal is doing these days. He just kind of dropped off. Alright, so now, just put your rotor over the wheel. Over the hub, excuse me. Wheel. That fits pretty good. I'm going to put a lug nut on for now just to hold it. I'm just going to use it to hold it in place while I put the caliper and pads and whatnot on there. Alright, good enough. I know it wobbles a little bit, but for what I'm doing right now, that's fine. So, anyway, now it's time to put the pads and the caliper on. Now, while I was drilling this out, I made a little comment. I wonder what Bob Veal is doing these days. And it occurred to me that some of y'all might think I'm impersonating another YouTuber again. Yeah, that is a quote he says a lot, but I was just genuinely wondering what Bob Veal's up to. I'm willing to wonder things too, so anyway, moving on. Let's get the rest of the stuff on here. Okay, so I know I'm lacking for a really good camera angle here, but I'm going to do my best. But it's time to put on the caliper, right there, and the pads. Now, for the caliper, this is one of the things where I try to get a specific brand, and for the calipers on these conversions, I like to use the Cardone brand, however you say that. And the reason I prefer them over the others is pretty simple. Is they make one for a very reasonable cost that comes with an extra coating for rust prone areas. And even though Virginia is not a northern climate by any stretch of the imagination, we got a lot of humidity and these old cars do not get driven much. So a little extra protection against the rust, I think, is a wonderful thing. Now when it comes to the pads, again, doing my favorite thing, just plain old say Ray Bestus, the best in brakes. Sorry, I know my singing leaves a good bit to be desired. But I'm an old NASCAR fan out of the 90s. And you couldn't hardly watch a race without that jingle coming on. And evidently must have worked because it's stuck in my head, what, 25 years later? Anyway, these calipers attach with an Allen head. A couple months ago I got this socket set that has the Allen heads on them. I think they're fantastic. I love them. But anyway, just get them on just like that. Make sure everything looks like it's supposed to. There we go. And these, crap. Anyway, these bolts come pre-greased. That's another good thing about this Cardone brand. See if I can adjust this camera for you. Yeah, they come pre-greased. So anyway, see if I can't get this to go in here. Oh, Mr. Ratchet, where are you? Sometimes I think I'd lose my head if it wasn't attached to me. move down to your bottom one. Alright, so torque her down. I'm sure I got a torque spec somewhere around here, but I don't remember. Just give it all of it. And then just hook up your hose. Now the cardones come with banjo bolts and crush washers. Yours don't worry, Scarebird is nice enough to send you some. And there we go. So I still gotta do the other side. I think I'll head over there real quick, do that. And then take these brakes out, get the pads set like they go, and we should have front disc brakes. Alright, so anyway, got my bleeder cracked open. Got the hose on. I'm using this vacuum gauge tester and brake bleeder I got from the parts store. Just looking at that vacuum gauge, the fact that it thinks that's 0, I don't really trust it for that. But when it comes to bleeding brakes, I've had pretty good luck with it, so. Alright, so I got my wife and my helpers in the car help me bleed these brakes. Alright, so I got, dadgummit. I push the brake down, hold it, release, push it down, release. Alright, so at this point I'm just going to step over top because I have double the time getting these brakes to bleed. And in the process, it took me quite a while to figure out what the problem was. All the camera batteries died and the memory cards filled up, and I was getting quite aggravated. And anyway, what the problem was, there was air trapped in the lines, and what I ended up having to do was just step back for a minute and think about the brakes. And everything on these old systems works on simple physics. So I had to figure out how would the air be getting trapped in these lines? And I eventually figured it out. So what happens is, when I made my new hard lines, I bent the lines and I had not secured them down yet. And the way they were sitting, the lines were actually sitting higher than the master cylinder. And I didn't think that was a big deal when I initially did it. But when I got to thinking about what was happening was the air was getting trapped in this high spot, and I just wasn't able to suck it out with a sucker or bleed it out through traditional means. So being that they weren't anchored down, I ended up just pushing the lines down with my hands, and there's plenty of flets in them to do that. And once I got it down below the level of the master cylinder, I had no problem bleeding the air out. Another interesting thing of note that some of y'all may have noticed is I got 2 places where I have a little stripe of electrical tape wrapped around my hardline. And the purpose of that was when I bent the hardline, it was just something I was using to keep the flare nuts from sliding all the way down the line. So that may be a useful little tidbit somebody could use. So this will conclude this episode where we're putting the front disc brakes on this Falcon. The Scarebird system is super easy to use. Really anybody with some basic tools can do it. You do have to take the hubs to the machine shop, but that's not that big of a deal. Not very expensive. Anyway, I've been a big fan of this system. Like I said, I've got the fronts done. Now I'm going to just do some work on the rest of the car to get it ready for the road. I drove my FAIRLANE this past weekend, and I had to make an emergency stop, and I really got on them hard, and It's got the exact same brake system on it, and it stopped on a dime. It pretty much stood on the nose. And the Fairlane's a heavier car than the Falcon, so I've got great confidence it'll work on this car as well. Also, I want to point out that the good folks at Scarebird have not paid me anything at all to talk about their products. The only thing they've done, they gave me a free hat. Anyway, this is a product that I used and believed in before I got the channel. Like I said, this is the 4th conversion I've done. And even though I had a little bit of a problem getting the fronts to believe that had nothing to do with Scarebird, that was actually my doing, there are affordable options as far as doing disc brake conversions on these and many other cars. Go to their website. So anyway, I'll see y'all next time. It won't be long. We're going to have this car on the road, and I can't wait. See you soon.